Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Gastler, and in this video I am going to talk to you about making question banks. In another video that I made, we actually made this test right here by using questions from a question bank. There they are. There's one right here from Define Chemistry that we added from a question bank, and these things right here that say random question set, those are from question banks as well. And so in this video we're going to talk about how you would make a question bank in the first place. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can go about making a test bank of questions, and one of them is from resources and one of them is from a test that you've already made. And it really kind of depends on where you're at and what you need in the question bank. If you do not have a test that has questions in it that you want to put in a question bank, then starting in resources may be better for you. Personally, I don't like creating things in resources, so I would make a dummy test, put all my questions in it, and then make it the other way. But I'll show you how to do it in your resources. And you can do this in any resource, personal or group. If you are in a group with other teachers that you collaborate with, then you could make the question banks directly in there, or you can make your very own. Here's one that I called Oops, apparently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to add resources. Once I'm in the folder where I want it to be, so right now I'm in my home folder, I could open up this let's open up this chemistry badges folder. That's a good place for it. In here I can open up or I can add a new question bank. It's the very last thing down here. You can make all the other things just the same as you can in resources or in a test. They look different, but it's about the same. So we're going to make a question bank. Let's make a question bank called random questions, because that's what I'm going to put in there. Okay. It doesn't matter. This enable question tracking is a tricky thing to deal with. That is something you can use individually or as a school or district. When you enable question tracking, you cannot make changes to the questions that are in the question bank. So that's bad. If you're like me, your questions end up with typos or wrong answers and you need to go in and fix them. You can't fix them if you have enabled tracking. So I don't enable tracking. Because despite the number of years that I've been using the same question bank, it still has typos in it. I feel like I'm constantly trying to fix them, just like all the other tests. So once I've made my question bank, this is the little symbol for a question bank. I've got a folder with the puzzle piece and the pencil that you would recognize as the test quiz if you were making that. So inside this question bank, now I have the opportunity to add questions, and this is going to look exactly the same as if I were adding other questions on a test. But I do want to point out that right here, I can only see the question types, whereas over here, I can't see page breaks, text, and importing questions from other places. A heads up, you can copy questions from one test bank to another, but you can't import a whole bunch at the same time. And you also can't import questions into a test and then put those in another question bank, which I personally really am irritated by, but it's fine, whatever. And so you can so anything that you would do to make a question in a test works exactly the same here. I have a video about that if you really want to see. So the options here is just to enable question tracking. What I don't like about making Actually, no, a question bank in here is fine. Okay, so that's all I have to say about making a question bank in the resources. My preferred method of making a question bank is by using a dummy test somewhere that I create. Maybe it's published, maybe it's unpublished, but I prefer making them in the test itself. I'm just more comfortable that way. That's how I started doing it in the first place, and so that's what I keep doing. So in this one, I have some questions that are from question banks, and I have some questions that are new. And what I would do if I wanted to make these questions that I've already entered into a question bank is I just go here to add questions to bank. It's going to show me all of the questions that I could add to a bank. So the ones that are already in a question bank, I don't have the option to move. That's just not possible. Okay, I can't do it. But I can keep these here. Okay, so I can unselect the ones that I don't want to. Maybe I don't like this ordering question or it doesn't belong in the bank. So I'm just going to push next here, and now it's going to take those however many questions I selected and it's going to add them to a question bank. So I have a couple of options here. Right now it says select bank. That's implying that I already have a question bank somewhere that I want to add them to, like the one that I just did. Remember, I saved it in my home resources, and then I had one. Let's see, it was in the chemistry badges folder. So there's my random questions question bank that I can add it to. I can also add it to that one that I called Oops. With this shared by others, if you are in a group with other people and you want to be able to share your question bank or your questions with other people, and you made your question bank in the resources, you can find that set of question banks, and it can be this is mine personally. We have a lot of question banks, so I'd have to go and find the right question bank and then put them in there. The other option that you can do, once you select the question bank, the next thing you do is you just add questions and it puts them in there. It's always going to put them at the end. If you really want to reorder them, you can go into the question bank and then do that. But let's say you want to make a new question bank instead. You can call this anything you want. We'll call it more random questions because, well, we've already got one called random questions. So this just makes sense. And then I have to decide where I'm going to put it. So home, again, are my personal resources, and the rest of these things are the groups that I'm in that are places where I could put a question bank. So maybe I want to put it in this secondary science folder. And then actually I don't, because I happen to know that in the secondary science folder there's crap tons of folders, and I'm never going to find the place that I actually want to put it. That's another story. So maybe I'll put it instead in my home folder. This is going to come up with fewer places. I think I want to put it in that same chemistry badges folder, so I just have to find the right folder that I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to add the questions to that bank. That's all I do. A little green bar is going to come up that says you were successful, yay! And you'll notice that it doesn't tell me that these are coming from a question bank right now. So this one is coming from this Define Chemistry Ready question bank. These other ones, I didn't pull them from a question bank, so the test acts like they're not in a question bank. The value in that is if I want a question to be in more than one question bank, I just need to go through this process again, select the questions that I want to put in a different question bank. Maybe I only want this one in a second place, and then I can go and I can put it in that other question bank. Let's put it in one that I already have called Oops. Okay, and so now there is another question in that Oops question bank. I can put them, if they're made in a test quiz, you can put them in as many question banks as you want. If you are making them in resources, you can copy them to other question banks, but you have to do it, I think, one at a time, which is kind of what I'm doing here anyway. So that's the main way that you can make question banks. Question banks are really useful. You can watch another video I have called, let's see, Mrs. Gastler, Schoology for Teachers, Making a Test, I think is what I called it. There is a bit in there on how you can use question banks in a test. I like it because I can have it choose a question at a time, or like it does here, it can choose randomly. So it's going to select a question from a bank. When I make question banks, let me show you what these look like. We actually spent quite a bit of time some years ago putting all of our questions into question banks. It actually took a lot less time than people think it took because I used another feature that I'm familiar with on Schoology, which you can too, and I'll talk about in some other videos sometime, to get a bunch of questions into Schoology in the first place, and then we were able to put them into our question banks. My question banks are in here. We've sorted them into units by year. Sometimes we update them. So if we look at the 1920 test banks, these are from last year when we were teaching chemistry. And then within each unit, we like to put, we organize things by a topic. So we have some main topics, and then within that topic, we have some more specific things, and because we want to have Schoology use the random function, we try to be as specific as possible in the question banks that we use. So we have chemical formulas and molar mass. In this folder, we have all these different question banks. And you can see, well, this one has crap tons of them, but these others don't have very many. You don't need a lot of questions in a question bank to have it be effective. And so we have some where they're writing formulas. Here they're gonna say how many element is in a formula. And so you can have specific questions. So if you want to make sure that a particular kind of question ends up on a test, you need to make sure you have a small enough question bank that's asking that type of question in a bunch of different ways so that it pulls at least one from there. An example I can give you is that at one point we had a question bank that had a bunch of different things in it. It had 5 questions about topic A and 5 questions about topic B, and we told it to pull 2 questions, but on a bunch of tests we had 2 A's or 2 B's, and so some of our students weren't getting tested on both topics. And so making smaller question banks is how you can avoid that problem. Again, I really love using question banks. Sorting and organizing them in your resources after you make them is useful. At one point you could color code the folders. I don't think you can do that anymore. But you can also change the order. You can edit the questions in the resources. You can also edit the questions once they're in a test, but it does not change the question bank. All right, well, I hope you found that useful. If you have the ability to make question banks to be using on your tests, it's a really useful tool to be able to have. Thanks for watching.